The helicopter came down so fast, the ground shook, windows rattled, dogs barked, kids dropped their bikes and ran toward the noise. In the middle of our tiny neighborhood, where the streets were cracked and the houses leaned like tired old men, a massive black helicopter was landing right on the empty lot next to my house. My mother grabbed my arm. "Amara, what did you do?" I couldn't answer. I didn't know. Men in black suits stepped out first. Then came a tall man in a gray coat, holding a briefcase in one hand and a folded letter in the other. He looked straight at me. But before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand how I got here. Because 24 hours ago, I thought my life was over. My name is Amara Johnson. I'm 17 years old, and I live with my mother and two younger brothers in a neighborhood most people drive past without looking twice. My father died when I was 12. Heart attack. No warning. One day he was laughing at the dinner table, and the next day he was gone. After that, everything changed. My mother works 2 jobs. She cleans offices at night and works at a laundromat during the day. Some weeks, she sleeps maybe 4 hours total. I've watched her hands crack and bleed from all the cleaning chemicals, but she never complains. Not once. She always says the same thing to me. "Amara, you're going to be the one who changes everything for this family. You're going to make it out." And I believed her. School was my escape. While other kids complained about homework, I saw every assignment as a step towards something bigger. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. I wanted to save lives. I wanted to walk into a hospital one day wearing a white coat with my name on it, and I wanted my mother to be there, finally resting, finally proud. But dreams cost money, and money was something we didn't have. That's why the National Excellence Scholarship meant everything to me. It was the biggest scholarship in the country. Full tuition to any university. Housing, books, everything paid for. Thousands of students applied every year. But only 10 won. I had been preparing for 2 years. Every night after finishing my homework, I studied for the exam. I borrowed books from the library. I watched free lectures online. I did practice tests until my eyes burned. And finally, the exam day arrived. The morning of the exam, I woke up at 5 a.m. I put on my best clothes, a simple white blouse and black skirt that my mother had ironed the night before. She had stayed up late just to make sure I looked perfect. "You're going to do great," she said, hugging me tight. I already know it. My little brothers, Marcus and David, were still asleep, but she had made me a special breakfast, eggs and toast. We couldn't afford much, but she wanted me to have energy. I ate quickly, grabbed my bag, and headed out. The exam center was 40 minutes away by bus, but I wanted to walk part of the way to calm my nerves. The morning air was cool, and the streets were quiet. I went over formulas in my head, historical dates, scientific concepts, everything I had studied for 2 years. I was ready, or at least, I thought I was. I was about 20 minutes into my walk when I saw it. A car, a fancy one, the kind you only see in movies. It was crashed into a ditch on the side of the road, the front completely smashed against a tree. I stopped. My first thought was to keep walking. I had somewhere to be. Someone else would help. Someone always helps, right? But then I heard it. A voice. Weak. Scared. "Help. Please, someone help me." I moved closer. Through the cracked window, I saw a woman. She was maybe 50 years old, wearing expensive clothes now stained with blood. Her forehead was cut, and she was barely conscious. "Ma'am." I called out, "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, and when she saw me, something changed in her face. Fear. "Get away from me," she screamed, trying to move back. "Don't touch me. Don't take anything." I froze. She thought I was going to rob her. She looked at me, a young black girl on an empty road, and her first thought was that I was a thief. Part of me wanted to leave right then. Part of me wanted to say, "Fine, help yourself," and walk away. I had an exam to take. I had a future to save. This woman didn't even see me as human. But then she started crying. "Please, I don't want to die. Please." The blood was getting worse. Her hand was shaking. She was terrified, and despite everything she had just said to me, she was still a person who needed help. I took a deep breath. "Ma'am, I'm not going to hurt you," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I'm going to help you, but you need to stay still, okay?" I pulled out my phone and dialed emergency services. "There's been a car accident," I said. "A woman is injured. She's bleeding from her head, and she looks confused. Please send an ambulance right away." The operator told me help was on the way, but it would take at least 30 minutes. 30 minutes. I looked at my phone. The exam started in 45 minutes. The center was still 20 minutes away. If I left now, I could still make it. But the woman grabbed my hand. "Don't leave me," she whispered. "Please don't leave me alone." What would you have done? If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next changed everything. I stayed. I don't know why. Maybe because my father always taught me that helping others was never optional. Maybe because I kept thinking about what my mother would say. Or maybe because when I looked at this woman, bleeding and scared, I couldn't see a rich person or a poor person. I just saw someone who needed help. So I stayed. I remember the first aid training we had at school last year. I took off my cardigan and pressed it against the wound on her head to slow the bleeding. I talked to her to keep her awake. "What's your name?" I asked. "Elena," she whispered. "Elena Kingsley." "Okay, Elena. Help is coming. Just stay with me, okay? Keep talking to me." Her eyes were getting heavy. I could tell she wanted to sleep, but I knew that was dangerous. "Elena, tell me about your family. Do you have kids?" She shook her head slowly. No children. Just my husband, Charles." "Tell me about Charles. What does he do?" She almost smiled. He runs companies. Big ones. He's always working. Always busy." I kept her talking. I asked about her favorite foods, her favorite places to visit, anything to keep her mind active. The whole time, I could feel the minutes slipping away. Every second that passed was a second closer to the exam doors closing, but I couldn't leave her. Finally, after what felt like forever, I heard sirens in the distance. The ambulance pulled up, and 2 paramedics rushed out. They took over immediately, checking Elena's vitals and loading her onto a stretcher. "You did good, kid," one of them said to me. "You probably saved her life by keeping pressure on that wound." I should have felt proud, but all I could think about was the time. I looked at my phone. The exam had started 5 minutes ago. "I have to go," I said, turning to leave, but then Elena grabbed my wrist. "No," she said, her voice weak but desperate. "Please, come with me. I'm scared. Please don't leave me." The paramedic looked at me. "We're taking her to City General. It's a 15-minute ride. You can come if you want." 15 minutes, plus the time at the hospital, plus the time to get back to the exam center. It was already too late. But something in Elena's eyes broke me. "Okay," I said, "I'll come." The ride to the hospital was the longest 15 minutes of my life. Elena held my hand the entire time. She kept apologizing for what she said earlier, for thinking I was going to rob her. "I'm so sorry," she said, tears running down her face. "I was scared. I wasn't thinking. You're such a good person, and I treated you like—" "It's okay," I said, even though it wasn't. "Just rest." At the hospital, doctors rushed her into the emergency room. I waited outside, still in my white blouse, now stained with blood. Nurses walked past me, some looking at me with curiosity, others with suspicion. One security guard even approached me. "You family?" he asked. "No, I helped her after the accident." He looked me up and down, like he wasn't sure if he believed me. "You should probably go home, kid." I wanted to explain, but what was the point? I was just a girl from the wrong neighborhood, wearing bloody clothes in a fancy hospital. I didn't belong here. I checked my phone one more time. 2 hours had passed since the exam started. It was a 3-hour test. Even if I ran, even if I begged, there was no way they would let me in now. Still, I had to try. I ran. I ran faster than I've ever run in my life. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. But I didn't stop. When I finally reached the exam center, I was drenched in sweat and barely able to breathe. I pushed through the doors and ran straight to the examination hall. A tall woman in a gray suit stood outside. Mrs. Patterson, the exam administrator. "Please," I gasped. "Please, I need to take the exam. There was an accident. I had to help someone. Please." Mrs. Patterson looked at me like I was an insect on her shoe. "The exam started 2.5 hours ago," she said coldly. "Rules are rules. No exceptions. But I can explain. There was a car crash and a woman was hurt, and I couldn't just leave her." "Miss Johnson," she interrupted, "I've heard every excuse in the book. Students who oversleep. Students who get lost. Students who suddenly have emergencies right when the exam starts. If I made an exception for you, I'd have to make an exception for everyone. But this is different. I saved someone's life." She didn't even blink. "Then I'm sure that will be very comforting when you apply again next year. Goodbye, Miss Johnson." She turned and walked away. I stood there, frozen. 2 years. 2 years of studying, of sacrificing, of dreaming. Gone. Just like that. That night, I didn't eat dinner. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. My mother tried to talk to me, but I couldn't find the words. How could I explain that I had thrown away our family's best chance at a better life? The next morning, I went to school like nothing had happened. But news travels fast. By lunchtime, everyone knew. "Hey, Amara," a boy named Tyler shouted across the cafeteria. "Heard you missed the big exam. What happened? Couldn't handle the pressure?" His friends laughed. A girl named Jessica joined in. I mean, it was probably too hard for her anyway. People like her don't really belong in those programs. People like her. The words hit me like a punch. Even Mr. Daniels, the guidance counselor, called me into his office. I thought maybe he would understand. Maybe he would help me appeal the decision. Instead, he said, "Amara, I'll be honest with you. I've seen students from your background try for these scholarships before. It rarely works out. Maybe this is a sign that you should consider more realistic options." Realistic options. Like what? Working at a fast food restaurant for the rest of my life? Cleaning houses like my mother? I walked out of his office without saying a word. That evening, I sat on my porch and cried. My mother came outside and sat next to me. She didn't say anything at first. She just put her arm around me and let me cry. I ruined everything. I finally said, "I had one chance, and I ruined it." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Amara, do you know why I named you Amara?" I shook my head. It means grace. And grace isn't about being perfect. It's about doing what's right, even when it costs you something. You saw a woman die on the side of the road, and you stopped. You helped her. You stayed with her. That's not weakness, baby. That's strength. But the scholarship. "God has a plan," she said firmly. "Maybe this isn't the end. Maybe this is just the beginning of something we can't see yet." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But that night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't imagine how anything good could come from this. Little did I know, everything was about to change. Stay with me, because what happens next is something I still can't believe. The next morning started like any other. I woke up tired. My eyes were puffy from crying. My mother had already left for work, and my brothers were eating cereal in front of the old TV in the living room. I dragged myself to the kitchen to make some toast when I heard it. A sound, low at first, like thunder in the distance. Then louder and louder. The walls started shaking. Plates rattled in the cabinets. My brothers ran to the window. "Amara," Marcus screamed. "Come look, come look." I rushed to the front door and threw it open. And there it was, a helicopter, a massive black helicopter descending from the sky, kicking up dust and trash and everything else in our tiny neighborhood. It landed right on the empty lot next to our house, the same lot where kids played basketball and people dumped their old furniture. Neighbors poured out of their houses. Some were scared. Some were confused. Old Mrs. Williams from across the street was clutching her Bible, probably thinking it was the end of the world. The helicopter's door opened. First came men in black suits. Security guards, by the look of them. They stepped out and scanned the crowd like they were looking for a threat. Then came him, a tall man, maybe 60 years old, with silver hair and sharp eyes. He wore a gray coat that probably cost more than everything in my house combined. In one hand, he held a leather briefcase. In the other, a folded piece of paper. He walked straight toward me. "Are you Amara Johnson?" he asked. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. He smiled, but it wasn't a cold smile. It was warm, grateful. "My name is Charles Kingsley," he said. "I believe you saved my wife's life." For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. Charles Kingsley. I had heard that name before. He was one of the richest men in the country. He owned hospitals, tech companies, media networks. His face was on magazine covers. His name was in headlines. And he was standing in my front yard. "Mr. Kingsley," I finally managed to say, "I don't understand. How did you find me?" "Elena told me everything," he said. "She told me how you found her, how you stayed with her, how you held her hand and kept her calm when she was terrified. She told me you missed your exam because of her." He paused, his eyes locking onto mine. "She also told me what she said to you when she first saw you, how she assumed you were there to hurt her." I looked down, not wanting to remember that moment. "Amara," he continued, "my wife is not a bad person, but she made an assumption based on fear and prejudice. And you, despite that, still chose to help her. That tells me more about your character than any exam ever could." He handed me the folded paper. "Open it." My hand was shaking as I unfolded it. It was a letter, printed on official paper with the logo of the National Excellence Scholarship Board. I read the first line and almost collapsed. "Dear Miss Amara Johnson, you are hereby granted a private re-examination for the National Excellence Scholarship." I looked up at him, my eyes filling with tears. "How?" I whispered. "I made some calls," he said simply. "The scholarship board was resistant at first. They said rules are rules. No exceptions." He smiled slightly. I helped him understand that some rules need to be broken. But he wasn't done. He opened the briefcase. Inside were more documents. I saw words like full scholarship, housing allowance, medical school internship, and Kingsley Foundation. "This is separate from the scholarship exam," he explained. "This is for me personally. Regardless of how you do on the exam, I want to fund your education. All of it. Medical school, housing, books, everything. And when you graduate, there's a position waiting for you at my foundation's medical research center." I couldn't breathe. "Why?" I asked, "Why are you doing all this?" Charles Kingsley looked at me for a long moment. "Because the world is full of people who would have walked away," he said. "People who would have looked at my wife and kept moving. You didn't. You risked your future to help a stranger who didn't even treat you with basic respect. That kind of heart is rare. Amara, and it deserves to be rewarded." But Charles Kingsley wasn't finished. That afternoon, he held a press conference. Right there, in front of my house, with cameras and reporters from every major news station. "I want to talk about what happened to this young woman," he said into the microphones. "Amara Johnson is one of the brightest students in this city. She had been preparing for the National Excellence Scholarship exam for 2 years. On the morning of that exam, she found my wife injured in a car accident. Instead of walking away, she stayed. She performed first aid. She rode with her to the hospital. She missed her exam because she chose to save a life." He paused, letting the words sink in. "And what happened next? The exam board refused to give her a second chance. Her school counselor told her to consider more realistic options. Her classmates mocked her. A young woman who demonstrated incredible courage and compassion was punished by a system that should have celebrated her." His voice grew harder. "I have a message for every institution, every administrator, every person who looked at Amara Johnson and saw someone unworthy because of her background or the color of her skin. You were wrong. And I will personally make sure that this kind of injustice is never ignored again." The story went everywhere. Within hours, it was on every news channel. "Teen saves billionaire's wife, gets second chance." Exam board under fire for refusing hero student. Charles Kingsley calls out racism in education. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Friends, relatives, people I hadn't talked to in years, all reaching out. Mrs. Patterson, the exam administrator who had turned me away, was suspended pending an investigation. Mr. Daniels, the guidance counselor who told me to be realistic, suddenly had nothing to say. 1 week later, I took my exam. It was just me in a private room at the Kingsley Foundation headquarters. No distractions, no noise, just me and the test I had been preparing for my entire life. I finished in 2 hours and 45 minutes. When the results came back 3 days later, I opened the envelope with my mother standing beside me. I had scored in the top 1%, not just in my city, in the entire country. I was officially a National Excellence Scholar. The day I left for university, Charles Kingsley sent his helicopter one more time. This time, I wasn't scared. This time, I was ready. My mother hugged me so tight, I thought she'd never let go. My brothers cried, even though Marcus kept pretending he wasn't. "I'm so proud of you," my mother whispered. "Your father would be so proud." I climbed into the helicopter and looked down at my neighborhood one last time. The crack streets, the leaning houses, the people who had watched me grow up. I wasn't leaving them behind. I was going to come back for them. I was going to become a doctor, and I was going to build a clinic right here in this neighborhood so that people like us would never have to wonder if they could afford to see a doctor. That was my promise. Elena Kingsley visited me at college a few months later. She looked healthy, strong. The scars from the accident had faded, but she said she would never forget that morning. "I think about it every day," she told me. "I think about what I said to you, how I treated you in that moment. I was so ashamed." "You were scared," I said. "Fear makes people do strange things." She shook her head. "That's not an excuse. I judged you before I knew you, and you saved my life anyway. That changed me, Amara. It really did." She took my hand. "I want you to know that I'm spending the rest of my life trying to be worthy of what you did for me. I've started a foundation for underprivileged students. I'm funding scholarships, mentorship programs, everything I can because of you." I didn't know what to say, so I just hugged her. Sometimes I think about that morning, the morning I had to choose between my future and a stranger's life. For a long time, I thought I made a sacrifice. I thought I gave something up. But now I understand. I didn't lose anything that day. I gained everything. I gained a purpose. I gained a family of people who believe in me. I gained the knowledge that doing the right thing, even when it costs you, is never truly a loss. And if you're watching this and you're struggling, if you're working hard and it feels like the world keeps pushing you down, I want you to know something. Your moment is coming. It might not look like a helicopter landing in your yard. It might not be a billionaire knocking on your door. But if you keep doing the right thing, if you keep being the person you know you're meant to be, your moment will come. Don't give up. If this story touched you, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story like this one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And remember, your kindness is never wasted. Until next time.